everybody. It's great to see everybody here. A lot of familiar faces. Just making my way here, I couldn't get to the front because I knew everybody, almost everybody. It's a foreign community as well. I'd like to welcome you all to Manila. I hope you love the weather. It's a little bit rainy, but it's not. This is the summertime. Welcome to the Prosperity Summit. I'm Cathy Yang, and I'm joined here with me, an esteemed panel who will tell us all about enabling the micro, small, and medium-sized entrepreneurs. In my repertorial work, I've found that the MSMEs have become a great, important component of this economy's growth. It's not only big business, but it's not only big business that's going to help them make things work, it's also government. Reason why we have here represented on stage with us a multi-sectoral team who will help us find out the right policies to create an enabling environment for the MSMEs. So let's get things going. And I'd like to introduce my panel and begin with Her Excellency GLORIA MACAPAGAL-ARROYO, the former President, Republic of the Philippines, Congresswoman, House of Representatives. Honorable Senator Bam Aquino, Senate of the Philippines. Honorable Secretary Ramon Lopez of the Department of Trade and Industry and 2017 ASEAN Economic Ministers Chair Philippines. Dr. William Dar, President, InangLupa Movement, former Secretary, Department of Agriculture, Philippines. And right next to me, RAMI SHARAF, the Senior Vice President, the Royal Group, Cambodia. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get the discussion started with Congressman Arroyo. As I was looking through the notes and I realized, you know, during the time that you were president for 9 years, the term they used wasn't MSMEs. And I got to know this when I was still a cub reporter. It was MSE, SME, small and medium enterprises. But back then you were a strong advocate of helping SMEs. I'm wondering now, fast forward to 2017, what sort of differences and evolution have SMEs gone through that are now termed MSMEs, and how do you think an enabling environment can actually be made to help them rise to the global value chain of the ASEAN?
Well, Cathy, let me begin by sharing some of my experience. It was SME in the beginning, and then we had a separate policy for microfinance. In 2008, we passed the Magna Carta for micro, small, and medium enterprises. That was when we integrated policy. But in the beginning, in 2001, 2 months into my presidency, America went into recession. Our exports went down. So our economic managers started to brainstorm, how do we boost domestic demand for the export demand that we're losing? And the answer was SMEs. At that time, SMEs was separate from microfinance. That's what they said, SMEs. And so we discussed with the SMEs, how do we push you? And their biggest need at that time, and up to now, I think, was credit. They were complaining about an old policy that had been repealed in the past. The old policy was for the government to guarantee their loans, their private loans, and then a previous government took that out. So they said, you've got to bring that back. So we did. At the same time, microfinance was coming in. And we decided to make, microfinance a cornerstone in our drive to develop entrepreneurship. And it was about that time when the first micro-lending program, Opportunity Microfinance, became a central bank licensed bank. So that was in 2001. And then in 2002, the American recession, or the American economy was still slowing down. But I learned things from my ASEAN neighbors and my Asian neighbors. And we set up the One Town, One Product program, which we started first in Malacanang, and then gave it for institutionalization to the Department of Trade and Industry. At this time, Congress was doing also a lot of work. The Villar Senator and Congresswoman Villar had a pet bill, the Barangay Micro Business Enterprise Bill, which became a law. And the most important incentive of that law was that it exempted micro enterprises from the minimum wage law. Came 2003, the Department of Trade and Industry came up with this comprehensive SME development plan. And, it was comprehensive training, technology, etc. The centerpiece was the Unified Lending Program, whereby the government financial institutions had a unified policy with regard to accrediting more conduits, lowering lending rates, and also relaxing collateral and documentary requirements. So that was 2003. And then in 2004, in our new medium-term development plan after the elections, it was still called SMEs, became a major thrust, and because microfinance and agribusiness, SMEs and agribusiness were found to have the highest job to investment ratio. So our medium-term development plan called for supporting 3 million entrepreneurs with credit and technology and market assistance, and we well exceeded that target because by the end of my term, we had supported 7 million entrepreneurs. In 2005, I did a very, very wise thing. I got Joey Concepcion to be my consultant for entrepreneurship. And that was when Go Negosyo was born. And now we have the fruits of Go Negosyo that are beginning to really make waves in the Philippines and in ASEAN. And in 2008, as I said, we had another important legislation whereby we integrated support for micro-enterprises and small enterprises, and the SME sector became MSME sector in 2008. In 2009, we inaugurated our 150th billion microfinance loans by having a 50 billion loan from the Land Bank to the Bulacan Cooperative Bank. And that year, we were named by the Global Microfinance Index. Is that the name of the organization? Let me see. The Globe, as the best microfinance country in terms of regulatory framework. So here we are. Yes, and in 2009, we also survived the world crisis again, like in 2001. So here we are now. How do we transform MSMEs, or micro and small enterprises, from a buffer against a global slowdown to a positive force for growth in the country and in the region? And that is what we are here to talk about today. And our terms of reference say especially in trade, services, and agriculture. So how do we do it in trade? 50% of our micro and small enterprises are in trade. How do we give them higher value added? Not just to help the country survive, but to help the country thrive. And Prime Minister Razak was very right when he said digital technology. We have to bring them to the world of digital technology. That means that, why? Why? Because payments are easier. Think PayPal. And then you can also have, it's also easier to be able to place orders and confirm orders by email. So it is very important. Digital technology is going to be the key to making trade world-class rather than mom and pop. But we also need government infrastructure for that, because that is also what Prime Minister Razak said. We have to develop, when he was talking to us in the holding room about developing infrastructure, because they're number 11 in infrastructure in the world today in the world, he said we're not only talking about physical infrastructure, but also digital infrastructure. So if we want to bring the trade, micro and small enterprises into the formal and the formal economy, and also into the economy that is going to be a driver for growth, they need digital infrastructure. What about services? Almost 30% of our micro and small enterprises are services. Typically, restaurants, rentals, transportation. So what do they need? Market access. Again, how do they get market access? Again, it's digital infrastructure. Think of Airbnb for hotels, and think of Uber for transportation. So those are the ways, again, to bring our micro and small enterprises in services from smaller operations to, they may remain small, but very prosperous operations. And then finally, agriculture. Well, we were talking about 50% trade. We're talking about 30% services. Agriculture, micro and small enterprises, less than 1% of all micro and small enterprise. And William Dar will know more about this and when it's his turn to speak. So I will not talk about the supply side interventions in detail, but what I can say is we need one important policy to increase the number of micro and small entrepreneurs in agriculture, and that is we have to have a law to make farmland eligible for collateral. So there are things that I was able to do, there are things that I would have wanted to do, but wasn't able to do, but then after all, governance is a continuum of administrations and not everybody can build an edifice by himself. So these are things that we can do looking forward, and the overall requirement would be, of course, finance then as now. We have to give access to the micro and small enterprises to the entire financial ecosystem. It shouldn't just be loans, loans, loans. There are also other elements in the infrastructure, especially leasing and equity. Now, how do you get access to that? That is where Go Negocios Kapatid comes in. They're going to need the big brother for that. In fact, if you look at all the requirements of micro and small enterprises, all the requirements, technology, market access, training, finance, all of them can be accessed by the micro and small enterprises if they have the right big brother. So congratulations, Joey, for making Go Negosyo that vehicle that is here and should become the driver of growth of this very important sector. Thank you.
Senator Bam, I'd like to pose the question that Congressman Arroyo had raised, bringing the MSMEs to the global setting. But I asked the question, are they ready? You've been very active enacting legislation. I believe 6 out of 17 laws in your 3 years as senator are all in support of MSMEs. How are they working out an enabling environment for MSMEs?
Thank you, Kathy. Firstly, good morning to everyone. Magandang umaga. Most of them were on MSMEs, and I think the favorite of Joey and SecMon and a lot of the people here is, of course, the Go Negosyo Act of 2014. That was passed to create the infrastructure to support our MSMEs, to help them grow and develop with a program that's really directed for their growth. Now, a lot of people here I've met before becoming a senator, and a lot of them know that my work in microfinance and in social enterprise has led me to develop some of these policies, no? And what we've seen is that most of our MSMEs will need about, we call it the 3 M's, money, mentorship, and market. You need the 3 M's to create that enabling environment for them to be able to succeed and to be able to grow. Former President Arroyo, of course, talked about the first M, which was money, and definitely a lot of our MSMEs need that. We have a number of people here who own banks and who are part of banks. The M and the L, the medium and the large, I think these days are enjoying extremely great interest rates. It's your micro and small that need better interest rates, and definitely opening up other forms of collateral or non-collateralized loans for them, or even a guarantee program, which we've been talking about for years, is something that can truly help bridge that financing gap. That's the first M. The second M, of course, is mentorship, and a lot of work is being put now in DTI and the ASEAN in terms of mentorship. In fact, the Amen network is really to put together mentors not only from your own country, but to be able to access that from other countries in the region, which I think is also equally important. But the third M, I think, is really the most crucial, which is market. Because a lot of our MSMEs, a lot of our M&S, the micro and the small, do have good products, they do have a lot of potential, but they're unable to access markets. And this is something where when we talk about entering the global scene, are we ready? It's all about accessing markets. Initially, or maybe one way to be able to do it, and DTI does a lot of this, is through trade fairs and through bringing you closer to retailers, which I think we're already doing a lot of these days. The other one, of course, is digital, which is to skip the traditional structures and go straight to the homes of consumers. But I think one aspect which we really need to focus on is really to open up inclusive supply chains, which I think the Kapatid program is really focusing on. No? The classic example there, of course, is Jollibee, where they opened up their produce to local farmers, and that's a 10-year program already, which a lot of the companies here, I think, can get into. These days, our ability to help, our intention to provide prosperity for all has shifted already from dole-outs and CSR budgets to truly one where the challenge is opening up our businesses to smaller businesses, to micro businesses. And it's not the easiest thing to do, as this has been documented already, but it's what we need to do. And if we can do that within our country and eventually across the ASEAN, where your larger companies are able to get supply from from smaller companies or even micro businesses supplying to small and medium, not just within the province or within the region, but across the ASEAN, then I think we're really creating a infrastructure where prosperity can be spread for all. Now, government and non-government organizations can come in terms of the readiness of your micro and small enterprises, because not everyone is ready. In fact, I would say the majority will probably not be ready. So there's readiness that you need to do both on the side of the large companies, which probably their foundations can do, or groups like the Go Negosyo and the Kapatid program can do. But there's also need, and maybe this is where local government and the Department of Trade and Industry through the negosyo centers can come in. Support your micro and small enterprises. Get them to a place where they can supply at a quality, frequency, and rate that's acceptable to the larger businesses with their larger supply chains. So if those 3 M's are present, no? Capacity to get financing, the mentorship, which can be done either through government, educational institutions, or partners, and the access to market, which can be done digitally, which can be done by bringing your products to retailers, and most importantly, I think, is opening up supply chains. Then I think your enabling environment will truly be enabling, and we can find that success and that growth that we want to see in this sector.
Which brings us to Dr. Dar. Willie, I was wondering, Congressman Arroyo made a mention of farmers. How do farmers fit into the mix of MSMEs, comprising only 1% of growth? We could do a lot more. We're basically agriculture, and yet the contribution is so low. So what are farmers' role in the development of MSME and overall in the economic development of a country?
Yeah, maraming salamat, Cathy, for that question. And that's why we are here today, to look at that opportunity for agriculture to be treated a business way. Go Negosyo has been in the forefront in tandem with various government agencies, Department of Agriculture, Trade and Industry, in pursuit of this dream. Having agriculture still as the greatest hope of our economy and people. Having said that, the agriculture sector performs for the last 28 or 30 years very dismal at the rate of 2.5% annually. And of course, our population is growing 1.8% annually. We really have now to put up the policy environment necessary for agriculture to grow the path of inclusive and market-oriented development. So inclusiveness, that's prosperity for all, and market really dictates the way agriculture will now be developed. And we believe that the Philippine government must now embrace what I call an agri-industrialization development strategy. And this is cascading to, creating rural and rural-based manufacturing industries where you value add more the raw products that you get from agriculture. And from there, look at opportunities to go international trade or market. And that's where you can get more income at the end of the day. Now, are we ready to do that? is government having all the wherewithal to go forward and create, say, 5 million farmers of today to become agripreneurs. That's a challenge. And I believe we have to start somewhere. And retooling the farmers, the way they think, the way they do agriculture, you know, we need to modernize and industrialize Philippine agriculture. There's no other way. As I've said, like in the case of exports, at the category where you have $1 billion export commodities, we only have 2 commodities, you know, bananas and coconut oil. And compare it, say, to Indonesia and Thailand. They have 5 export-oriented commodities along that category of $1 billion export. So there's so much to do to grow and develop Philippine agriculture. And the Mentor Me program has been started with the Department of Agriculture. Go Negosyo has really nurtured that relationship, that partnership with now the Department of Agriculture, and hoping that that seed has now, been sown to be nurtured along the way, but accelerating the process of agripreneurship.
So Secretary Mon, do you think we're ready at the pace at which farmers are benefiting from agripreneurship, but they're already on the Mentor Me level? But at what point will the government say farmers as well as trade and services are ready to compete in the region?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Good morning to all. It's a continuing, it's a work in progress. So definitely we have to make the farmers think like entrepreneurs and, you know, act like entrepreneurs. In that way, you compel them to become, you know, more innovative with the products. In other words, you don't just sell the commodity, but value add, further process the product, because it is in value adding where you get much of the income. The income is generated on creativity, the value adding, the innovation that you put into a particular commodity. In fact, that's not limited to agriculture products. When we talk of SMEs, and that's the reason why former President Arroyo mentioned the inclusion of micro. In the micro SME, we say in the Philippines, that's 99.6%. Actually, 91% of that is the micro. It's only 8+% for the SM, no? SMEs. And therefore, it's critically important for us to empower the micro mostly. No? And that is where you can really achieve prosperity for all if you make the micro really level up and be smarter entrepreneurs. That when you talk of micro, you're usually talking of traders, retailers, sari-sari store, you know, mom and pop stores type. But what we want to make when we started the Go Negosyo, and thanks to the President for really coming up with the idea of creating an advocacy on entrepreneurship development, is to really make smarter entrepreneurs in the country, not just entrepreneurs. In other words, it's not creating livelihood programs, but really creating more entrepreneurs. Because when you say entrepreneurs, these are the more dynamic, innovative set of businessmen. They find ways. They look for, you know, they're very resourceful, and they always innovate. They look for what's out there what's being demanded, what's the unmet needs in the market, and they fill it up, and therefore the product becomes more relevant. And if you have entrepreneurs always thinking of what's the next big thing that I can do, then you really would have a much empowered micro and small and medium entrepreneurs. And this is where, because in government, the bill and the act of the Go Negosyo Act initiated by Senator Bam really made a big difference, because we are able now to establish, by now we have about 478 negosyo centers. And the negosyo centers, as explained by Senator Bam, really provides, at the end of the day, 3 important aspects. It's not just financing, access to money, access to market, which I can explain in a bit, in a while, and of course, access to mentoring. And in DTI, just quickly, we came up with the 7 M's of intervention. And that has something to do really with changing mindset, mastery of entrepreneurship concept, making entrepreneurs realize that there is really a science also behind, creating a business, unique selling proposition, product development, looking for what's needed in the market, opportunity seeking, etc., financial literacy, the mastery of the different entrepreneurship concepts, which many micro entrepreneurs may not have learned because probably they've not gone through business schools, of course, not all, maybe just 1%. So you really have, through informal education, entrepreneurship education, we're able to bring that across the country. And then, of course, the mentoring, which is the powerful tool in any entrepreneurship journey. Mentoring really plays an important part, and that is where you have this big brother, small brother helping each other in the Go Negosyo Kapatid program with PCCI, Go Negosyo, and many organizations, PFA, and then AFI, different franchising groups, and the Federation of Filipino Chinese. There's a lot of private sector initiative right now because of this ecosystem that we're building. Now, access to market is important, as mentioned, and we're trying to just continuously innovating beyond, let's say, the usual trade fair that we have, which really gives exposure to a lot of products. But beyond that, we've moved a little further by making the products available in not only in trade fairs where you have 2 to 3 days exposure, but really encouraging and partnering again with the private sector. We have here the SM Group, the Robinsons, the City Mall, the Villar malls, that is now providing a free space. Imagine, a free space in a mainstream market that will enable micro-entrepreneurs, the best of their products, the best of MSME products, get that exposure, waiting to be discovered for any volume buyer, whether it's a local and even retailer, local and both foreign and local, and allowing them to be discovered. And when they get discovered, that's where you get the volume buys and they become bigger and they graduate. And we offer the space to the next best batch of micro SME products. So that will be a continuing process that will really provide market access. The financing, a lot has been done there, and we've initiated some more microfinance program under the Duterte administration, putting in and setting aside a budget that will give them a lower cost financing to replace the 5-6, the usurious source of, the typical source of financing for the micro entrepreneurs. So a lot of programs that will provide market access, finance, and most importantly, the mentoring, which will really level up the kind of thinking, the innovative mindset that all entrepreneurs would have. And with that, we prepare them, therefore, to become stronger entrepreneurs, ready to set foot in global shores. And we link them now first with even local, bigger companies, and as well as in the global scene, as we talk about global value chain, linking these micro SMEs being part of the value chain of bigger companies here and abroad. And the digital economy, technology is always a part of empowering them, because not only for e-commerce purposes, the more important thing for me in a digital economy access really is the idea generation, the source of ideas, how to improve further your business model, new ideas on design, on packaging, what's the trend out there, what's marketable nowadays, and these are sourced from from the internet. You don't have to travel. Before, you have to travel to get many ideas. A lot of entrepreneurs would go to Hong Kong, Singapore. Why are you going there? No, you want to get more ideas. So that's how they continuously innovate their business. Nowadays, of course, the internet is there. So empowering the MSMEs to really prepare them for and improve their global competitiveness is key.
The struggle with MSMEs isn't just the Philippines, it's felt across the region. I mean, Cambodia, for one, agriculture is a really huge issue for MSMEs. What's been the experience like? The Royal Group is a huge conglomerate, the biggest conglomerate in Cambodia, with exposure to many businesses. How are you going about the struggle in having to help MSMEs contribute as well to the economic development in Cambodia?
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here. First of all, I want to put emphasis about the seeding stage, which is education. Before I talk about the group, before I talk about Cambodia. My colleagues, the panelists, we all talked about mentoring, we all talked about coaching, but we are in a new era. We are in a new stage where the needs are different, the business dynamics are different, the digitalization is different. If we don't have the right seeds in place, not only domestically, country by country, but I'm talking ASEAN-wise, if we don't have that futuristic and even revolutionary look at how the education should look like, come out of the conventional education where you have a book, you read, you get a text exam, have a score, and come out. And this we feel as employers. You may have some candidates with postgraduate degrees, but when it comes to basic knowledge, we lack it. Now, this can be some food for thought, and I think that the coming 5 to 10 years, we will realize that if we don't do it now, surely it will be too late. We talked about digitalization, and I'll give some examples from Cambodia and how Royal Group played a major role. It's not a secret, in Cambodia we still have some areas which are unelectrified. So Royal Group decided that infrastructure will be one of the lines that we should put emphasis on. Most of our power is imported. One of the biggest barriers when we are roaming the world and promoting Cambodia as an FDI destination, one of the #1 questions was always, you know, 20 cents, 22 cents per kilowatt for me as an industrial FDI is a huge challenge. So this is why the Royal Group decided to come out of the conventional lines of business and now invest in hydropower, invest in renewable energy, make sure that we can add to the grid and we minimize or at least reduce the importation of power. When I am an investor and I have a factory and I know that the power will kill my margin, I will choose another place where power will cost less. The other challenge was education, and as I said, we look at some of these. Royal Group, we are a private company, we are not a government sector, so 3 days back we inaugurated the second international school in Cambodia called Southbridge, which will have 2,500 students with the latest curriculums and the latest futuristic, as we said. Telecom, we talked digitalization, and Madam, you said it. If we don't have the digital infrastructure, we can just fantasize about it. So in Royal Group, we have the first 4G telecom. We have the first ISP, which on 15th March, we celebrated $100 million investment connecting Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia with a fiber optic line, which people were challenging. This company in Cambodia can take such a challenge. It was a challenge, we did it, and now it's reality. So all these I can say, pillars in the portfolio of Royal Group, but being one of the biggest, if not the biggest group, we play a major role, as Madam said, of being the big brother. Many of the most successful SMEs in Cambodia are run by graduates of good big brothers like Royal Group. The ones who will work for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, he absorbs, he digests, he or she, he digests what it is about. And then when it comes to implementing these procedures, these rules, these creative ideas in a smaller scale of a micro or an SME, it's different than someone who never had been exposed to what a corporate is, working rules, you know, all the dynamics that we have in corporates. So that's another part of seeding. I want to put a huge emphasis on gender, and Madam, you mentioned it. In Cambodia, we have, of course, the CCC with 7,000 members, and I can tell you more than 90% of the members are MSMEs with zero discrimination on how much do you produce, what is your annual turnover. So this containing, I can say, is there. And back to the gender point. We are proud that in Cambodia we have the CWEA, which is Cambodia Women Entrepreneurs Association, with wonderful stories of success of some ladies who came out of a small handcraft that they were doing at home. And then they started selling. After selling, they opened a small kiosk, and 2 or 3 of them made it to Japan and to Europe, winning design and big awards that showed that it can be done. But it all takes us back to one major point, which is the empowerment. Without the empowerment reflected by the right policies, reflected by open dialogue, we have an issue in this contact between, especially, I mean, big corporates, we have open door to ministries, to high-rank officials. But these guys who don't know even sometimes the regulation, where should I apply for a license? What should I do to register a tax? And this is something that the CCC in Cambodia plays a major role in, and of course, Royal, we are part of it, which is, number one, we created a hotline where any question of any micro or small enterprise, they can come, they can be answered with simple language and fulfilling all these requests. Then we come to another point which plays a major role here, which is how can we take the hand of this newborn business, a micro or a small one. The government in Cambodia, back to the dialogue, we have something called GP, Government Private Sector Forum, GPSF. And this is an initiative of Mr. Prime Minister Hun Sen in 1999. And this forum is like the door when you get all doors blocked. If you apply to any of the ministries and you get your issue blocked and no way out, we have working groups, and the Cambodia Chamber of Commerce, of course, is the secretariat of all the working groups, but other associations play that role of co-chairing. So in that session, which is twice a year, if I have an issue and the minister couldn't solve it, we'll have the prime minister there and we'll have all the ministers lined behind him. The issue is raised, and it's like the Supreme Court. Then the prime minister interferes, and the decisions in that GPSF are binding and undebatable. Cambodia got the highest score by World Bank with access to the access between the private sector and the government because of this GPSF, which was a great example where you can raise your issue and at least have a voice. With all what I said, we also have the bigger picture. Let me come out from Cambodia and come to the bigger picture of ASEAN. One of our biggest challenges is we like it or we don't like it. It's a reality. We have the Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and we have Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. So we have this gap, and the gap is always there. So then it comes even to the mentorship at level of country, not at level of businessmen. When a golden rule says you can start where others ended, all the developed countries within ASEAN, they had been there. They struggled, they faced these challenges, and they overcame all these challenges. So why should I go to square one if not to start where they ended? And this is a big gap that should be sincerely covered. And with all what I said, about Cambodia surely is valid about ASEAN, because then we are in the bigger picture of playing our role in the global or on the global map. And I fully agree with Mr. Prime Minister. The potential is there, demographics are there, geography is there, access is there, resources are there. What is needed is sincere will of working together. And allow me to use a slogan. I love this slogan, and it once came to my mind, and whenever I'm a speaker in the ASEAN content, I use it. We should sincerely complete each other rather than compete each other. Competition will always be there, but we need that sincere will and that pride that I'm Cambodian, and by the way, I am Cambodian. I'm Cambodian, but I'm ASEAN. And this feeling, we need to sense it. We need to be sincere about it, and we need to be proud of it. One last point. When Europe is fantasizing about 1 or 2% GDP growth year over year, when Germany grew by 1%, they celebrated. Great year, we have 1 year. Our average GDP year over year in the last 2 decades, including the financial crisis, is a phenomenal 7%. We need to be proud of it, we need to retain it, we need to sustain it, and we need to work sincerely to continue in that direction. Thank you so much.
You know, I find it really interesting that in all the responses of our panelists, one word came up. It's digital e-commerce, or a phrase, 2 words. Who thinks that digital e-commerce will be the great equalizer? I'd like some hands from the audience. That's a lot of hands. Well done. Because this is what people think in the ASEAN will be the great way forward for MSMEs. But when you come to think of it, there is no ASEAN compliant rule that will dominate e-commerce transactions. I mean, yes, we do have individual legislations, but not cross-border transactions. How do we protect and safeguard our transactions online? And that's the question I'd like to pose to our legislators here. Just thinking at the top of your heads, how can we take the lead as chair of ASEAN this year in maybe promulgating a rule, not individual, not looking inward, but outward, towards the ASEAN that can be useful to all ASEAN MSMEs? Maybe Senator Bam can start.
Well, that's an interesting question, simply because even in our own country, we are still grappling with the regulation for that. No? But I know DTI has taken a special focus on the e-commerce platform. No? I think Yusek Noya is here, and they've been developing the regulations and the standards which our internet providers must be at so that business can actually be in a better place. So I think this is one of the things that we've recognized, which is an issue. It hasn't really gone to legislation yet, but I'm sure when it does get to legislation, we'll be ready for that. I don't know if Secretary Mon wants to comment on that.
Just quickly, you know, when you talk of the e-commerce, you know, the online way to really do commerce, it's just a means to, you know, to market your product, to sell it, get the transaction. But, you know, at the end of the day, we'll have to undergo through the same process of, you know, passing through, bringing the product, passing through borders, customs, paying tariff and all that. So at the end of the day, we just simply have to address the lowering of all these non-trade barriers, non-tariff measures, and all those remaining barriers. While tariff rates are brought down, the replacement tend to be, as mentioned by the Prime Minister as well, tend to be the NTMs and the NTBs. And so there must be a stronger effort to promote that cohesion and really bringing down all these hidden barriers, no? And the way I would push this, even as we discuss in the ASEAN Economic Ministers, is probably we should agree on a set of guidelines or parameters before one can really institute a non-tariff barrier. Is it just for standards compliance, or is it to protect a particular industry? the purpose really of tariffs being brought down is to remove that infant industry argument and really promote greater competition, greater flow of goods and services. But if you use another tool to protect your industry, then it defeats the purpose. So at the end of the day, let's agree, or we can agree probably to a set of guidelines that can justify a country to institute an NonTrade barriers. Otherwise, that 1,000 number of items can grow to 5,000, and it might just be growing as we speak. So we just have to put certain parameters for that.
Yes, go ahead, Rami.
Actually reaching to the marketplace, the digital marketplace, is the final stage. I was involved in some e-commerce venture in Cambodia before joining Royal Group. Our biggest challenge was actually the awareness and the education of the merchandise or the merchandisers to come to these guys who are producing, who have a product, who are willing to come and sell it and share it online. How to develop it, how to brand it, how to pack it, how to make it sellable, how to follow some basic standards in order to be able to convince the buyer, not only domestically or regionally, but even globally, because this platform is a global platform. Now, this is where the chambers of commerce all over ASEAN have to play a role, because we keep saying 90% of our members, and I'm sure this is the case in all ASEAN, 90+% of our members are SMEs or MSMEs. Why don't we, within that umbrella, create, let's call it a training, like you said, education, digital education. How can we, and you know, I remember talking to some handcraft dealers out of some province in Cambodia. The guy was complaining, I cannot reach Phnom Penh, the capital, and I'm selling only in my province, and I wait for some tourists to pass by where I sell some shawl or some handcraft. And when I started talking that, listen, you can, all I need is a digital picture of the product, and you supply, and then we sell on your behalf. I mean, they didn't get it. So this is exactly the basics of that platform. So we can keep talking about, yes, the marketplace, the digitalization. We need to educate our MSMEs about this new era, about the availability, and how we can, once we have done that, then surely we can overcome the later on stages. But let's start with basics.
Willie?
Yeah, before we can perfect e-commerce as the way forward, I think at the ASEAN level, we need to harmonize a good number of regulations as basis for e-commerce.
Which ones?
Let me mention biosafety regulations, good agricultural practices, sanitary and phytosanitary standards, and food safety standards. This would have to be, common to ASEAN to make it possible for e-commerce to succeed.
Senator Bam, would you support those and put them to legislation?
Yes, but I just wanted to say that e-commerce is important, definitely, but clearly it is only hitting 1% of total sales in our country. I think the best bang for your buck is still inclusive supply chains. And as much as e-commerce is really sexy and really interesting and innovative, and we need to support that, and it's a growing field, I think the lowest hanging fruit is really being able to integrate our economies better and push for inclusive supply chains. Now, what do I mean? We do it, we've been talking about it for years, but we haven't come out with actual metrics for the inclusiveness of companies. It should be a badge of honor for every company, for every large company, for them to say, X million we actually buy from local farmers. X billions we actually are able to support these communities because we're able to directly get from micro and small enterprises. We haven't gone to that point. And I think as we do push e-commerce, we need to be able to fix the basics. And this is really something that's very basic. Does your company use the resources that you have to support prosperity for all by working with smaller communities and smaller enterprises and micro enterprises? I'll give you an example. I was in Aklan last Tuesday, and we visited the Negosyo Center in Aklan, Secretary, so this is my report to you. And the Calibo Negosyo Center had a small trade fair. And one of the ladies there, Carmela, was now selling 2,000 buri bags a month to Shangri-La, Boracay. And from a very, very micro business, where she was just selling these indigenous-looking bags on the side of her house, now she's a supplier of Shangri-La, Boracay, and now talking to other Shangri-Las across the ASEAN to eventually be able to supply them. And from 2 workers, she's now at 30 workers now. This is the story that we want. This is the inclusive supply chain that we want to see. This is the mentorship which the Negosyo Center provided to her, the market linkage that the trade fair was able to get to her. This is the basics that we want to see. And if she can eventually sell her buri bags, and by the way, these aren't sold at the stores of Shangri-La. These are given to each guest, no? In the room, you're gonna find Carmela's buri bag. You know, if that story can be spread out and that model can be spread further and replicated, then I think that's the prosperity for all that we're looking
Senator
at.
Bam,
No?
I mean, given that we have the product and that we have those supply chains that you mentioned, of course that buri bag will have to go through the ASEAN because that is the goal. But you will realize that there are customs that get in the way, the procedures, the paperwork. You know, there's another hindrance for MSMEs to actually go through the customs lanes.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, among my panelists, what is the view of actually getting to establish green lanes for the ASEAN? Because when you look at the European Commission, they've been talking about green lanes, but they never really got anything going. How can we do it here in the ASEAN? It's our moment right now. Can we, Congresswoman Arroyo?
Well, we're talking about a single window, and that was what Prime Minister Osaka was talking about as well earlier. So admittedly, it is an area for further development, and I think that the ASEAN leaders are very much aware of that, and it's part of their major agenda.
And the NTMs, yes, Secretary Mon.
So that has something to do with a usual agenda item that is being pursued among ASEAN countries, the trade facilitation, as one way really to simplify even customs procedures, the forms, having a single window, and also for micro SMEs to be able to certify themselves, let's say, as in terms of rules of origin that will make their products eligible for trading. That's also important, and whenever we talk of an integrated.
I have about 7 minutes to go, and I wanted the participation of our. Okay, that was really funny. I want to laugh. I want to get the participation of everybody. If you could just go to the microphones and ask your question, I'd give you the space. 7 minutes into the end of this discussion, I have to bring up rules of origin. I mean, that is really a tough one. Local content, 40%. How can you actually ask an MSME to figure out whether the product is 40% local, 60% international? It can't get through the customs borders again in the ASEAN if they can't figure it out. Reason why the Prime Minister, and I'm glad that he brought this up, he actually challenged all of us to take the lead in lowering the non-tariff measures, NTBs, by 50%.
Yes, that's quite
Is that
tough. And
doable, Secretary Mon?
That's where you need that parameter setting. You know, you have to pass all the tests for you to justify, for example, a non-tariff measure. That has to be set in place. Without those, then one can freely just add a non-tariff measure, and for what reason? So those are the questions that will have to be settled. Is it for industry protection? Is it for standard compliance? Yes. Normally, that's a justifiable, reason to set one. Or sanitary, phytosanitary measure that has to be put in place for the safety, of course, of the consumers of the importing country. But beyond that, it's hard to justify. It should be difficult for one to justify a new non-tariff measure to be set in place. So then the rules of origin, that is where also we have to help micro and even the SMEs, those already part of the ASEAN value chain, to learn more about self-certification, enabling one to certify that his product is eligible to be and to be accepted within ASEAN. Helping all those, by the way, is this other aspect that we've not yet discussed. the ease of doing business, one that will really help, especially the SMEs, overcome a lot of challenges in their operations. I think this is where maybe later on Senator Zubiri can discuss all these initiatives, even at the Congress, at the Senate, on how we are trying to lower the cost of doing business, really promoting the ease of doing business that will really enable and empower SMEs with respect to their operations. So ease of doing business is important.
I'd like to hear from an MSME. What do you think about this panel chat so far? Is anyone ready to give a question? We have 4 minutes to go. Any hands? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself, your designation, and to whom you'd like the question. You can take my mic. You can come over here, sir. Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Nick Ni from Taipei Economic and Cultural Office.
Welcome to Manila. At the
thank you.
office in Manila, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm based here. I'm very interested in the remarks from the Senator AQUINO saying that the participation of the other countries in the cooperation is equally important in this achieving the prosperity for all. And based on that, I'm thinking of the outreach, the policy or strategy for ASEAN toward your neighboring countries. For example, you got the, for example, the neighbors from the north, Japan, from Korea, from Taiwan, and based on that, I would like to mention that Taiwan has announced new southbound policies, which is people first, people-oriented toward our South friends in the South. The steps we have adopted, number one is that we have lifted the visa for our neighboring countries. For example, the Philippines, from June 1st, free, no visa to Taiwan for all Filipinos. This is a very, very important signal for our friendship to ASEAN friends. And for the other countries we have just mentioned at the end of last year were Thailand, Brunei, not to mention Singapore and Malaysia, that's a long time ago, no visa. For the other ASEAN members, for example, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Burma, we have liberalized for the multiple visa up to 2 years. This is our people first strategy, number one. Number two, we encourage big investment to our ASEAN country friends. For example, last year alone, up to this year, we encourage already 3 commercial banks established in Manila. Altogether, brought in 6 billion pesos, 6 billion, because your minimum requirement is 2 billion for each commercial bank, at least 6 billion here already. And number 3, our country has established Taiwan desk to help investment to ASEAN countries. Philippines office, Taiwan desk, has just established. We have helped Taiwanese to invest to the Philippines. So other countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and Burma, Vietnam, we also established the Taiwan desk to help encourage to the neighboring country. So back to my question. Yes, what's your northbound strategy? Thank you.
Thank you for the good news. Much appreciate that. Before we wrap, I'd like to indulge, if you could, just a very quick closing remark from all of you, starting from Rami all the way to Congressman Arroyo, please.
Well, I will not repeat myself. I'll again use the slogan I love: completing each other rather than competing with each other. Thank you so much.
Secretary Mon.
Hello. Hello. I could sum up basically, as we promote prosperity for all, we normally would ask big companies who are here and everywhere we go, what is your inclusive business model? How can you integrate micro SME in your value chain and buy directly from them? And right now, maybe in closing, I would just like to extend that, not only among, let's say, within the Philippines, but extend that into the ASEAN and even beyond ASEAN, like the example of our friend Nick, or Taiwan, Japan, China. Ask the companies there, how can they include our micro SMEs, let's say, especially for the from the developing countries, to supply them directly, either as a finished consumer good or an intermediate product. But the point is, they're linking up already with the micro SME, making them part their value chain. Examples cited by Senator Bam, just one among the many little successes that we're starting to see. We have to go beyond our country, extend it to the ASEAN and even beyond ASEAN, encouraging bigger companies there to really help micro SMEs in our region. Thank you.
All right, Willie. Then I'll go through Senator Bam and then Congressman Arroyo.
Yeah, inclusive business in agriculture is the way to go. To develop agriculture in the 8 member economies of ASEAN, of course, Singapore and Malaysia or Brunei have more or less zero growth, zero engagement in agriculture. But for the rest of the ASEAN member economies, 8 member countries are really still hoping agriculture as a way to really develop their economy and people.
The title of our summit is Prosperity for All. So I guess the question is, do we really believe that we can achieve prosperity for all? Do we? Yes. I believe it because the Filipino business leaders are here, and all of them started small. All of them. I know all of their stories. They all started very small, and now they're in the top 10, top 50, top 100 of our country. For many years, they have been the inspiration of our MSMEs. They've inspired the MSMEs that one day they can also be as big as some of the people here. But now we need to take that to the next level. We need to go beyond inspiration. To really achieve prosperity for all, we need to open up our businesses to smaller businesses, make that connection, and truly achieve prosperity for all. So that the growth that we've been experiencing, that the ASEAN has been experiencing, can really be distributed better. And I think that's a challenge, not just for the Philippines, but for the whole region. And by all of you being here, I'm sure we're all together in this. We don't have a choice. We need to push this. Thank you very much. Magandang hapon po.
When I was tracing the evolution of an enabling environment for MSMEs over 17 years, I started by saying that microfinance was our cornerstone. And I ended up by saying at the end of the day, today, all of the comprehensive requirements of MSMEs can be answered through the institution of the kapatid or the mentoring. So I was thinking as we were listening all this, I was listening all this time, I said, if in 2001, Dr. Yunus was the father of microfinance and he was the key to success of MSMEs, well, today, 17 years later, Joey Concepcion is the father of mentoring. And you're the Dr. Yunus of this century, Joey. Thank you.
And on that note, thank you so much for our panelists and for this very enriching discussion. Yes, we will have a group picture indeed. I would love one as well for my Instagram. Thank you so much. And to the beautiful audience, have a great and productive session ahead.
Thank you very much.